feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Public speakers will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The chair will call upon public speakers at the appropriate time. Each public speaker is requested to state their name and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Public speakers who wish to speak in person should submit a public speaker card to the clerk. Public speakers participating by Zoom who are wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice on the meeting agenda will be provided to the members. If authors of any written correspondence would like to speak during the meeting, they should raise their hand or submit a public speaker card. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Thank you. All right, Deanna, can we have roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Armstrong?
Here.
Commissioner Kelly?
Here.
Commissioner Meadows?
Here.
Vice Chair Obringer? Okay. And Chair Carlson?
Here. All right, with that, we'll move on to our next item, which is public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on any item not specifically noted on our agenda today, but under the purview of the Planning Committee. Do we have any public comment?
I do not have any public comment.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to our consent calendar.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Yeah, I'd like to pull an item just for a question on the consent calendar.
and that would be
Item 3G on the TFCA funding.
Did you want to just discuss it or actually pull on it, deal with it as a separate
Oh,
item?
I want to ask a question about it. Just pull it right now.
Let's just ask the question, then we'll go ahead and move
Okay,
forward.
so if I can do that. Yeah, so I'm looking at the funding for last year and for this year, and I just want to get clarification. So it looks like we're getting 1.563 in funding for these 40%. Is that correct? But there's actually going to be more to spend because SWAT did not spend all of their funding last time. And then how does that go back into the pot? Because I know there's countywide programs, and then after that, there are allocation funds. And I got to tell you, WCTAC's a little concerned about that. So Danielle, can you just explain how this works? And I think something similar happened the year before, too.
Yeah, this is a unique situation with this was also money from under our previous TFCA policy, so the rules of our new policy do not apply to these funds. So if it were under our new, it would go back into the countywide pot. Because it was under our old policy, it stays with SWAT. So we've since spoken to the Air District to verify how we can use that SWAT money, if we need to use it all in 1 year, if we can spread it out. And thankfully, they've given us the flexibility to spread out that funding across multiple years so that it's not hurting the countywide overall pot or shifting any imbalances to take away from any of the others. So we will be spreading it out over multiple years and working with SWAT to figure out how they want to allocate that money.
Okay, so that might go to one of their countywide projects or something like that. So it won't come all in 1 year. Yeah. Okay. Going forward, I'll probably have some questions for you about the old TFCA funding. Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. Any other questions, comments from board members?
I'm just going to comment that I'm here, so
Yes,
I apologize. There was
Thank
a
you.
Zoom
I can
link that wasn't
acknowledge your
working.
arrival.
Yeah.
All right. Commissioner Oberger has joined us remotely. With that, we'll go ahead and open public comment on the consent calendar. Do we have any public comment?
We do not have any public comment.
Okay. With that, I'll bring it back to the body for,
We actually have a written public comment, sorry, that was prior to, distributed to the committee on items 3G, H, J, K, and L by Brian Swanson. Thank you.
thank you. I'll just share that I did receive that before the meeting. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I move approval.
I'll second.
Second. So we have a motion by Meadows, second by Armstrong. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Armstrong,
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Meadows,
Yes.
Vice Chair Obringer,
Yes.
and Chair Carlson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Awesome. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 4 of our regular agenda. This is for approval of the State Route 4 Vision Study for submittal to Caltrans, and Matt Kelly has joined us to present.
Good morning, thank you, or good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Carlson, and good afternoon to the Planning Committee members. Matt Kelly with the Authority. I'm going to turn on my video. And can you see my screen? Let's see. I can see it. All right, so we are here to talk about the State Route 4 Corridor Vision Study. For those of you who are in the West, Central, or East County RTPCs, you have seen a version of this report, so this is really an update for SWAT, who doesn't generally have to deal with Highway 4 on a daily basis, but I'm sure it's of interest to everyone. So we'll walk you through what we did on Highway 4 over the last couple of years. So the reason we embarked on a vision study for the corridor was that there was a lot of independent efforts going on in the corridor over the last several years, studies, plans, projects, and they were all kind of disconnected. There was the State Route 4 Integrated Corridor Mobility Project that the Authority embarked on about 6 or 7 years ago, but never completed. We just completed phase 1. The State Route 4 Design Alternatives Assessment, which looked at expanding the managed lanes system, specifically in East County on Highway 4, and possibly converting to an express lane or adding an additional HOV lane there. That was led by MTC. CCTA led the East County Integrated Transit Study, which looked at a transit expansion beyond the Antioch BART station to the Brentwood Intermodal Center. There is the SR4 Operational Improvements Project, which you may know stretches between Port Chicago Highway and Bailey Road, kind of bridging the Willow Pass area and looking for some solutions to the congestion problems that we see there on a daily basis. Of course, the 684 interchange project, looking at the remaining phases there, and kind of at the periphery of the SR4 corridor is the State Route 239 corridor, and really focusing on the airport connector project. And then in West County, the Hercules Hub, which you may know is the development of the rail station there on the Hercules waterfront with provisions for future ferry, and will of course serve buses, bikes, pedestrians, and cars as well. So we wanted to kind of stitch all these plans and projects together while looking at the corridor from a holistic view, and not just focused on the automobile, and really kind of adding some value to these other reports, these other ongoing efforts. And at the same time, Caltrans had started its CMCP process, which is a comprehensive multimodal corridor plan. Basically, Caltrans requires that you have one of these CMCPs in place in order to receive funding through some of the SB1 grant funding programs, specifically the Solutions for Congested Corridors, which we have targeted for both 680 and SR4 for the highway projects there. As soon as there is a adopted CMCP in place, we can start applying for those funds. So generally, Caltrans leads a CMCP effort. We approached Caltrans with our SR4 vision study and said, hey, is there any way, since they weren't ready to embark on a CMCP for Highway 4 quite yet, we decided, hey, can we start this effort and could it qualify as a CMCP? And they said, you know, as long as you include several components, they would consider it a CMCP. And so, you know, they said you need to be targeting these 6 topics, the 6 you see there. So in addition to the vehicles, transit, freight, bikes, pedestrians, and emerging technologies. Those are all things we would have been including anyway. So it was really kind of a win-win situation that it would it'd be something we already wanted to do, but it would basically give us the hunting license for getting grant funding on SR4 well ahead of where we would have been if we had waited for Caltrans. So we amassed a large stakeholder group, basically all the jurisdictions, transit agencies, and RTPCs along the SR4 corridor between I-80 in the west and the San Joaquin County line in the east. We had some initial stakeholder engagement where we came to this committee as well as several others and asked them, you know, what should be included in the scope of this effort. What we heard from this group and others was that Ignacio Valley Road and Kirker Pass should be included because everybody knows that is a route through a couple of 3 cities, 4 actually, that is affected by congestion on SR4 and people diverting to avoid the freeway. We definitely considered that. We thought about it a lot, but the authority really thinks that that corridor deserves its own multimodal study, and that will be identified in the countywide plan as a corridor for that deserves its own, really detailed plan that will focus on transit and active transportation in that corridor. So we hear a lot of public comments about improving the bicycle connections between Pittsburgh, Bay Point, and Concord through the Willow Pass area. So that is something we strongly considered as part of this effort. And we received questions wondering if we were anticipating the full build-out of the Concord Naval Weapons Station in our analysis. We did modeling, and so we were questioned whether we were assuming all the 25 to 30,000 jobs and the 12,000 or so new households, and that is included in our model. We have the original EIR development in there. We will update that with the newest numbers once the latest EIR is completed. And then we were asked to consider strategies for improving pavement conditions and improving PCI along the corridor, and especially on the highway. So the vision for the corridor, which was put together by all the stakeholders, is really to look at the corridor holistically and approach mobility holistically. A lot of times we think about getting people from A to B, but we don't think about what's beyond A and what's beyond B. There may be that first last mile connection that we're missing, and really looking at the full trip and how people get from their home to their destination as part of our planning process. Equitable access, so looking at the equity priority communities along the corridor and making sure what we're doing improves access for them. Modal diversity, basically, looking at the corridor as a multimodal corridor and looking for options for transit, for bikes, for peds, and really, this is a highway-based corridor that we're looking at, for Caltrans, but what we really want to focus on is getting people, say, bikes and pedestrians across Highway 4 or along Highway 4, maybe not from one end to the other, but really just within these communities trying to get around and getting the highway to not be I'm blanking on the word, something that would prevent them from getting from one side of town to the other, or from
A barrier.
a barrier for reaching their destination. Thank you, Member Obringer. So then congestion reduction, so that project we're looking at in the middle of the corridor there over the Willow Pass is really the focus of where the congestion is in the corridor and is the focus of that part of the corridor vision. So in order to get people on different modes and in order to get people to their jobs on time, system reliability and efficiency is really important. People want a reliable trip, whether it's on a bus, in their car. They want to know that it's going to take just, about the same time each day. And then that bus will show up around the same time each day. Sustainability, of course, and part of sustainability is looking at the way we grow our cities, and so providing access to the housing developments that are being planned around the corridor, especially those around transit, is very important, and then safety for all modes. So the elements really, as I mentioned, built upon those extensive existing efforts, those kind of 6 major ones I talked about, but also lots of plans that have been completed over the last few years. We performed an additional analysis of corridor safety, looking at the collision hotspots along the corridor, freight usage along the corridor, where our arterial operations were affected by congestion from the freeway, and then where there were opportunities for emerging technologies in the corridor. We mostly looked at ramp metering plans and signal timing plans on those. Those were kind of the most common technologies that are being deployed. We also had extensive public outreach. We established evaluation criteria so that we could screen projects and then bundle projects together based on their performance and their ability to kind of add value to one another. So our outreach to the actual public was focused around our community event series, where we hit 7 events along the corridor. We also had an online survey, and what we heard was that we've got to work on fixing that congestion, those bottlenecks. We heard that all along the corridor because, people in West County, they travel to East County. They hit that congestion going over the Willow Pass. So we heard about it in all locations. We heard about roadway maintenance, really on the highway. I mean, each city has their own PCI issues, but it was more about improving the ride on Highway 4. And then safety improvements for all users, whether, a lot of it was about bike and peds, but also for vehicles. There was a lot of talk about speeding on Highway 4. So those additional analyses we performed, these are just the highlights. So on the safety analysis, we found that 34% of pedestrian crashes resulted in, they're called KSIs, killed or serious injuries. And that is a really high rate. The reason for most of that is speeding. So, that is something that hopefully can be addressed by this plan, but a lot of that needs to be done on local streets. The freight system analysis, what we found is that, freight really isn't a major issue on Highway 4. There are trucks using it, but they're not using it as a through corridor. They're using it to get from, say, a warehouse in Concord to maybe the destination in East County, or to get from the warehousing or the ports in West County to 680, something like that. But they're not, using Highway 4 to get from the Central Valley to the Port of Oakland or something like that. But it is affected when there is a lot of congestion on the Altamont Pass. Trucks may detour up Byron Highway and use Highway 4. But Caltrans also doesn't consider it a freight corridor, so we limited our analysis to that. There weren't any major issues that we felt we had to deal with. So the arterial operations analysis really identified what we probably already knew, that the problematic segments are those parallel corridors in East County that are affected by the congestion on Highway 4. And we evaluated 14 technologies in use by Caltrans or municipalities, and most of those, as I mentioned, were ramp metering or signal timing. So we went through 79 documents, pulled 87 projects from those documents that we identified for scoring. We developed the goal-based scoring criteria, which you see on your right. You can see 3 factors were weighted by the TAC for the scoring, and that was safety, mobility, and social equity. And then based on that scoring, we developed 3 tiers of projects based on how they scored. We then focused on the tier 1 projects, the really high scoring projects, to develop bundles. So we kind of picked kind of one project or kind of a major project or an issue area like safety, and built bundles around those projects or issue areas that were complementary, that added multimodality to the project if it was a highway project, and really just added value to the other types of projects. So this is the list of the tier 1 projects. These were the ones that really rose to the top, and these were the ones that we built those bundles around. And so you can see one of the bundles on the right. This is the Hercules Hub project bundle. The Hercules Hub is over there, kind of in the northwest of the graphic, along the water and the rail line. The complementary projects are mostly elsewhere, but what they're trying to do is really provide access from the existing transit center, that is mostly bus-focused, across the freeway and Sycamore Avenue and the railroad line. It's kind of a triple threat of barriers to get from, the more developed side of Highway 4, the more, where most of the development has gone on in Hercules, to the newer part of town where the Hercules Hub will be. So really making it easy for folks to get across the highway is the goal of this bundle, as well as providing some improvements to the freeway off-ramps that will allow buses to get in and out quicker. So that's kind of what you'll see along for each bundle, but I'll just walk you through it. So as I said, the bundles improve competitiveness. They include community-supported projects. These projects, like that Sycamore Avenue bike pedestrian improvement, is something that's long been identified by the city, and so we didn't have to ask. We didn't have to vet that. It's already been vetted. We also feel these bundles may self-mitigate any induced VMT for any of these projects. Now, the Hercules Hub wouldn't have any induced VMT, but say the Highway 4 operational improvement project or interchange projects could be seen as VMT inducing, and we think these bundles could serve as suites of VMT mitigation projects that are already ready to go. Whereas for Interstate 680, it took us a year to develop those mitigation packages. So we developed 8 bundle fact sheets. We identified the capital costs for all those projects, and then we developed potential funding programs, or we identified potential funding programs for each project, and those are part of the fact sheets. So here's just an overview of the 10, but there's 10 bundles, but 8 fact sheets. The 2 that don't have fact sheets are the countywide mobility hubs bundle, which is part of our mobility hubs plan with the hubs that are actually in the corridor, and then the countywide smart signals bundle, which would include all the smart signals as part of our countywide smart signals program that are in the corridor. So I can certainly take any questions from you, but really our goal here is to approve this plan and pass it on to Caltrans for their internal approval, and as a CMCP. Once it is a CMCP, we can then start, I called it a hunting license, but basically we can start working with the stakeholder agencies in the corridor to fund these projects and hopefully get them implemented. So I can take any questions.
Thank you, Matt. Great job. Commissioner Kelly.
Yes, thank you, Matt. Really, really appreciate it. And I think this is long overdue. I mean, certainly the traffic on 4 between 680 all the way out to Brentwood is a nightmare at certain times of the day. So you put all these bundles together, then assuming that Caltrans approves them, then would we just go for funding for a whole bundle? Or is that just kind of to give them a graphics and say, hey, you know, in this bundle, this particular project is really, really needy. So how would we use this bundle concept?
The bundles aren't sacrosanct. They can be, you can just fund one project or, individual projects from a bundle. We package them together to highlight that there was, that there's interplay between these projects.
Yeah.
That one project might perform better when built with these complementary projects. So really for us, the funding it unlocks is the solutions for congested corridors under SB1. That would really only go to like the SR4 I-680 interchange or the operational improvement projects. That funding wouldn't go to a biker ped project or
Right.
the Hercules Hub.
Right.
There's other grant funding sources that you would apply to for those projects. So really, I think where the bundles come in is that VMT mitigation program. That's where a bundle could be funded wholly. I think in some of the cases, they're going to be funded piecemeal. But we hope that including some of these smaller projects in this document will advance them for funding or make them more attractive to funding.
Yeah, and I think it's just a great concept. Putting this together kind of shows you the issues in each particular area, so thank you for that.
Sorry, any other questions?
I
or
have a
comments?
raised hand from Commissioner Obringer.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. So I do really appreciate this. It's because it lays out the whole vision for the county, which is very smart. Realistically, though, what do you think the timeline is to get funding to implement all of this? And if that's uncertain, which I understand if that's your answer, would these projects be included whenever the next measure goes out for a vote? Is this like a tool, right, to try to help voters see what could come of passing a new measure or reauthorizing the measure?
Great question. So I think, in terms of the near term, that solutions for congested corridors is the best chance we have for, getting major amounts of funding in the corridor for the major projects. I think a lot of the other projects that don't get advanced as part of those will feed into a new expenditure plan. So we've already done the vetting, we've done the public outreach, we know there's support. So those would feed into first our countywide transportation plan and then hopefully a future expenditure plan.
Can I just maybe add, I think it's important to note that we are actively working on some of these projects already in the corridor. So there's the SR 239, Vasco Byron connector project. I mean, we're actively working on getting the environmental document done, which is a tiered environmental document to allow us to fulfill our obligations under the designated federal earmark that was for the project, which does have a deadline to it. And then also to move forward the Byron Airport, connector project. And then, but we call it the Vasco Byron connector project. And then the other project is obviously the 684 interchange. That's a project that's being moved forward. We just got $58 million for that project from TCEP, from Trade Corridor Enhancement Program. And then the other project that we are going to be actively moving forward is what we call the State Route 4 Operational Improvement Project. And that is the improvements of, that's a suite of projects between State Route 242 and Bailey Road, both in the eastbound and westbound direction, which we all know that's the most probably terrible segment in the afternoon and the entire, probably worse than 80 at this point, actually. And so it was actually the only red spot in the county during the pandemic, actually, in congestion in the afternoon, even during the pandemic. So we had to put that project on pause because we were trying to figure out how to adapt to SB 743 and vehicle miles traveled. And I think Matt and Stephanie have become the experts in that relative to Innovate 680. And so now we're ready to move forward the operational improvement project. So we do have funding for that project already. It's actually state transportation improvement program funding, both for eastbound and westbound, to be able to move that forward through the design phase in the eastbound direction and then the environmental phase in the westbound direction. And then we'll be continuing to seek funding. So I know there's a lot of projects there, but staff is actively working on, using our hunting license, which I like that. I'm going to use that. So using our hunting license, we are actively seeking how to fund some of these key projects. And then to your question, Commissioner Obringer, yeah, I think all of this is kind of leading into two things. One is the countywide transportation plan. That's step one. And that's what the team is actively working on. And then there'll be definitely more discussion, in the coming months, in the coming years, relative to how these projects would potentially fit into a transportation expenditure plan, which will be performance-based. So there will not be enough funding for all the projects in the corridor, I can tell you that right now. But we will be basically looking at, some sort of framework to help identify, what we're calling high-performing projects, in the future expenditure plan.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Do we have any public comment on this item?
I do not see any written public or virtual comment.
Thank you. With that, bring it back. We're looking for a motion to approve the study for transmittal to Caltrans for acceptance and adoption as a CMCP.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, I'll move the item
Awesome.
for acceptance.
Second. So we have a motion by Commissioner Kelly, a second by Commissioner Meadows. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Armstrong?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner Meadows?
Yes.
Vice Chair Obringer?
Yes.
And Chair Carlson?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 4B, this is authorization to execute an amendment to a Fear and Peers contract. And Matt's going to join us one more time.
You get me again. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair, Commissioners. Matt Kelly with the authority. So since we were just talking about the countywide transportation plan, it's perfect timing to talk about amending the consultant contract so we can start developing this project list that Tim was referring to. So I think all of you were at our board workshop in May. The CTP team learned a lot from that two-day session that we're now carrying forward into the countywide transportation plan. However, while all the work, an overall work plan was previously approved, not all of the budget was approved for the work under that overall work plan. The May board workshop allowed us to refine our scope of work for the remaining work, and that's what we're bringing to you today. So what we've done is done a little bit of a rescope based on what we learned for the remaining components of the plan. And in summary, what we've done as part of this amendment is to move some budget around from completed tasks that had remaining budget to the tasks that required more budget, including public outreach. And then we moved some budget into our task to work on what we're calling the transformative visions and five-star projects. So the types of projects that Tim was alluding to would be part of our five-star projects. Those are the projects that are going to be the marquee projects, you know, as part of any future expenditure plan or sales tax measure. So we feel this next phase of the countywide plan in developing that project list is really the core of the plan. So this amendment for $600,000 to Fair and Piers allows that work to continue, and also allows us to prepare for the November board workshop, where we'll present our findings and really fine-tune this plan as we head towards adoption, hopefully early to mid 2026. So our recommendation today is to approve Amendment 2 to Agreement number 605 with Fair and Piers for the work identified in the attachment in your packet. And I can take any questions.
Any questions? So I just had one real quick, just because I have a poor memory, but we are on track. We anticipated the timeline to be completion and board approval essentially in November of '26. It really isn't a change to the timeline.
There's no change to the timeline.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this item? We have no one in the room.
We do not have any hands raised, no virtual comment, thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, then I would bring it back to the committee for the approval. Do I have a motion? I'll move.
I'll move to authorize the additional funding to Fair and Piers for on-call professional
I'll
services.
second.
There we go. We have a motion by Armstrong, a second by Obringer. May we have the roll call vote, please?
Yeah, Commissioner Armstrong,
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Meadows,
Yes.
Vice Chair Obringer,
Yes.
and Chair Carlson.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Moving on to what I believe to be our final regular agenda item, 4C, which is approval of the Accessibility Advisory Committee final draft bylaws. And this is presented by Danielle. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair and board members. Similar to, I shared this morning with the APC, we have worked tirelessly with our Paratransit Coordinating Council to develop new bylaws and transition our PCC into the Accessibility Advisory Committee. We're excited that we came to consensus and are going to be expanding the membership as well as the scope of the AAC, which will now be advising officially on the implementation of the Accessibility Transportation Strategic Plan. So we are looking for approval of the bylaws as well as CCTA being the coordinating entity for all accessible mobility programming in the county.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Kelly.
Yeah, so just one question about the committees. So the PCC is now becoming the AAC. So what's the difference? Or is it just a name change?
So it's a pretty significant change to the bylaws that we negotiated through. So the membership, the makeup of the committee, the numbers are different. We are trying to get a more diverse representation across the transit operators as well as paratransit operators through human services, social service organizations, as well as members of the public that are representing different types of disabilities, age groups. So we're meeting the definition of, as required by the state of California, but then we're adding additional kind of purview of the committee to be advising on our ATSP implementation. They also have responsibility in reviewing Measure J Claim 15, potentially expanded over 5310 from Caltrans, trying to evolve the oversight of the committee to be more all-encompassing with our accessibility work.
Okay, and in terms of membership, is it going to be a bigger group? About how many people, do you know offhand?
I heard a final number I want to say is 17.
17 or something like that? Oh, good
The
luck.
full makeup is,
It's going to be a lively meeting.
it already is. In the attachments, the bylaws that are attached to the staff report, it has the full breakout of every single member, and we'll be starting to recruit membership pretty soon.
Okay, so you're going to start all over again then? Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I'll open it up to public comment. Again, we have no one in the room, but do we have anybody online?
We do not have any written or virtual comment, thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'd bring it back to the body for approval of the bylaws.
I apologize. I do have a quick question.
Yeah.
So when would this start meeting? I was trying to look through the staff report and I didn't see that.
We haven't officially set the calendar. The assumption would be we need to start the recruiting process and see how long it takes us to form the new body and then officially start them. We're also transitioning to the committee being on the same calendar as the rest of CCTA's committees as well as the board, so that it has a fresh start at the calendar year as well as their subcommittee assignments. And then we need to transition out the PCC as well. So waiting for this next step of approval of the bylaws before we kind of set our schedule for the rest of the year.
Got it. Thank you.
With that, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve these new bylaws for the AAC.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Kelly, a second by Armstrong. Can we have the roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Armstrong,
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes,
Commissioner Meadows,
Yes.
Vice Chair Obringer,
Yes.
and Chair Carlson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next item is correspondence communication. I have none, other than that earlier public comment we received prior to the meeting. And then commissioner and staff comments. I have none. Staff?
Just,
Oh, he wants to get on Highway 4.
I'll make it quick. So I mentioned this at the Administration Projects Committee meeting, but we're at the board meeting. We are going to be, just a heads up, we are going to be talking in depth about SB 63, the Regional Transportation Measure. And we're still kind of figuring out the next steps there, but we will be recommending some sort of a position for the board to take on SB 63. So a lot of moving parts that happen this week with the Assembly Transportation Committee on Monday, and we also have the Revenue Tax Committee early next week. And so we're still waiting for an expenditure plan to come out from the Senator Wiener's office, and so there's a lot of moving parts. So I'm hoping that we'll have everything, to be able to bring some sort of position to the board in next week. And timing's of the essence because all this is going to happen really quickly between now and like August. And so our next board meeting's not till September. And so I wanted to kind of at least get board input on this next week at the board meeting. So, and then the other thing is, John Hong, our Director of Planning, retired. And so, excited to announce that Matt is going to be our Acting Director of Planning for the time being. And so just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. So if you need anything planning related, Matt's your guy. He's got the hunting license. So,
Good luck.
Yeah,
That's all I'm
thanks.
saying, Matt. Good luck.
That's it.
I've just got one item.
Yes.
I just want to extend the invitation. I know you all got one for the Iron Horse Trail overcrossing ribbon cutting at Bollinger Canyon Road. That'll be on the 19th of July, 9 o'clock over in City Hall, and then we'll move over to a 10 o'clock picture taking, walk across a bridge, and it'll be a fun event, I think, for the ribbon crossing, for the overcrossing ribbon cutting. So I hope members of the board can make it and the staff, and we look forward to that event and getting that bridge open.
Awesome.
Bring our bike.
Bring a bike. And roller skates.
That's it. Anything else? All right, with that, any other business? All right, seeing none, we are adjourned to our next meeting, which is September 4th at 1:30 PM. It is now, we'll call it